Okay, welcome to Doug and Friends. I'm Doug. These are my friends. Not really. My dad, Doug Wilson. My brother-in-law, Ben Merkle.
Cheers.
Nepo baby number one. Nepo in-law number two. And family friend Aaron Rench, partner in crime.
It's inverse Nepo.
He had to
Yeah,
earn his
inverse.
job.
I would say that Aaron is sort of, he's a Nepo baby in that he's part of the crime family, but not part of the blood family. What are we here to talk about today?
That's a good question.
What are we here to talk about today, Jake? What are we supposed to focus on?
You started Christianity today.
Oh, we're starting about CT. So recently, Canon Press, the business which we all have some relationship to in some capacity, we put an offer in, an asset acquisition offer to Christianity Today for 10 milli, for 10 big ones to try to buy their name, assets, contracts, etc. I don't know why people are so surprised by this,
Right. Yeah.
but they were. Why do you think people were surprised by this, Dad?
Because they believe in the inexorable nature of the progressive drift.
Yeah.
They think that there's nothing can be done. They don't think anything can be reversed. Nothing can be undone. There's only one success story, and that was Al Mohler at the seminary a generation ago, where it was the drift was successfully reversed. The evangelical pattern is always to take our ball and go home. So
Yeah.
it gets to a certain point, and we chuck it and go start an alternative institution. We're driven out of the main lines. We start independent churches. We lose the seminaries. We start Bible colleges. We just
Retreat.
and then we build something else that grows bigger or more influential or as big as the original, which the liberals then target.
I remember your dad, my grandfather, asking me why we would bother building beautiful buildings.
Yeah,
Or he said, why would you bother building something nice for the liberals?
right. Right.
Which
and,
sort of represents that true believer spirit of retreat and failure.
and so, well, the thing about that is, coming from the North American evangelical ethos is pre-mill,
Yeah.
pre-millennial dispensational. And so it makes perfect sense, consistent with that theology, to say, why build beautiful things for the liberals who will inevitably take over? But then looking at the last 200 years, they're not wrong exactly. The liberals have taken over a lot of stuff and run things that they couldn't ever build. Could you imagine the current Archbishop of Canterbury?
What should we actually call her? I don't want to call her Archbishop.
The Right Reverend Jadis.
Jadis. The Queen Jadis of Canterbury.
The Queen Jadis of Canterbury. Well, so she's in this position, but it's a position that if the missionaries were first landing on England shores and she's the head, they'd never build any of those cathedrals. They'd never build anything. So this is, identifying killer David Burge's strategy of the left is identify a respected institution, kill and gut it, where that institution as a skin suit, while demanding respect.
Connected to this, this is just funny, but get your response to it. This is from the very first editorial published in Christianity Today in the 1950s. I think it was 1956. I don't know if I got the date, the exact year, but it was in the 50s.
56 or 57.
Their statement was, theological liberalism has failed to meet the moral and spiritual needs of the people. Christianity Today is confident that the answer to the theological confusion existing in the world is found in Christ and the Scriptures.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Perfect.
Those were the Carl Henry days.
Right.
And speaking of, so here's a fun connection. In my dad's later years, I asked him, "Hey, did you ever meet Carl Henry?" And he said, "Oh yeah, I was in a Bible study with Carl Henry." So he was. My dad was part of the post-World War II generation of evangelical leaders, Henry, Ogilvy, those guys. And I remember as a kid, Christianity Today looked like a theological journal. It was rough cover, titles of the articles on the front cover. It was a serious theological journal, and what they wanted to do was be fundamentalists with a smiley face. They wanted to be fundamentalists who were nice, and they started out well.
What would be strategic about picking it up now? Because in many ways it feels like it's sunk to a level of irrelevance. But what would be strategic about grabbing it now? What would you want to do with something like that?
I think it'd be
Wear it like a skin suit.
yeah.
Joking. Go on.
I think it'd be a momentous symbolic victory.
I'm just wondering if we should be making an offer on Wheaton.
On Wheaton? Yeah.
Sure. I think a big part of it is if a banner and CT really did hold a banner for evangelicalism for a long time. When a banner is in the mud, when it's down, like what is strategic about getting it up and getting it back up again? Yeah. That's incredibly strategic, especially if you have on the battlefield, you've been rolled backwards, you lost your banner, it's in the dirt. And then now you're pushing back and you're able to then push the enemy back, recover the banner, and, hike it back up on the pole. That's fantastically strategic. You can't do anything more strategic than regain ground and push.
And you can't argue it's just a piece of cloth because people don't work that way.
Yeah.
I would say, let's say whatever Christianity, there would have to be all sorts of retrenchments because Christianity Today is now heavily dependent upon grants from organizations that would never in a million years give us grant money because there'd be articles attacking.
Oh, no, we don't want to influence anybody. We just love giving money away. We love giving the money away because it doesn't affect the outcome at all. It's like, of course it affects the outcome. Right. They're not stupid.
Right.
They have lots of money because they're not stupid.
But then imagine what percentage of this current subscribers of CT are aging boomer soft evangelicals who would cancel their subscription.
Who also don't read it.
Yeah.
Like
It's
that's
just for the coffee
Dentist
table.
office fodder.
Yeah, it's like it's not
Dentist office magazine.
kind of. I think that it's the people who are in it. I think like many magazines, there's a sort of self-importance that comes with it. There's kind of like a little status chit that comes with it. But if you think, I don't remember what the circulation was, we looked at it, but it's not small. But if you were able to get your data like you can off digital media, where you can see where people are dropping off, like what they read, how do they get to the back cover, like are they actually going cover to cover, that number is very small. That's a much smaller number. But I do think it's strategic, and I do think pushing to retake ground that has been lost is always strategic. That's always a great thing. When you take an outpost or you take something that's fallen and you put it back to work, you're able to redeploy it on the battlefield for good. That's fantastic. That's a really, really tremendous blessing when that happens. And I don't think it's happened that much. It has, but it's something that at least in our little small time frame, not many believers, not many conservative Bible-believing Christians have seen fallen institutions be retaken. And it's startling us in the political sphere, and it's possible in the cultural sphere, and it's possible in the ecclesiastical sphere. And then the Anglican Church does what they do to make it less, less likely that the conservatives are going to stick around at all. It's going to be Ichabod completely.
Right. But it definitely was distressed. It definitely is distressed and has a measure of relevance kind of gone. I just looked, and in 2010 they were publishing 12 issues a year. So 15 years ago they were publishing an issue every month. Now they publish half that. It's cut in half. Publications cut in half.
I know you guys have talked about this elsewhere, but for the people who want to know, the offer was a serious one.
Yeah,
it was not. It was not an April 1st out of season.
No,
it was a serious offer, which if they had responded to positively, which I understand they have not. Right, we got the formal
They would be stupid if they just said yes to the first offer. Let's put it that
Right.
way.
All right. So they've declined. They've declined the
They
offer
politely decline. They're not interested in selling.
formally. Is this sad chapter over? Should we let the healing begin, or
It's fresh. It's really fresh right now. I don't know that we have a.
There is no healing. No,
the story's not over?
The story's not over. The story's not over. I will say that we have tried to buy things in the past, much bigger than this, but didn't have. This one leaked, and so that we have had other attempts in the past that were significantly larger that did not leak.
But people
And
don't
so
know
this
about.
is, but this is a game that we are playing. We are actively playing. We really have to hurry up by the end of the year, or else Israel takes our money back. So we got to deploy. We got to deploy this capital.
We got 10 million burning a hole in our pocket.
Yeah, we got to get this
I
money.
can use it on Wheaton.
We got to. Yeah, exactly. We got to spend this money or lose it. It's like a budget item in
Yeah.
some government department. Not really, but it's. There are plenty of empty institutions, both culturally and religiously. So if you think CT is an example, but there's plenty of things that are defunct or semi-defunct in the entertainment world, in the secular spaces. There's just a lot of vulnerable targets right now, and the swing culturally has been very, very significant. And part of the principle of pursuit means we don't just want to be grateful that the left doesn't have as much mojo behind them anymore. They're not tyrannically coming after us to mask up and stay in our houses and vaccinate right now. Mm-hmm. They did that, and we fought back, and the whole culture has swung in reaction. We don't just want to say, oh, good, they're not currently beating down our door. We want to actually pursue and gain ground and drive all that leftism just as far back as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And keep that momentum rolling. So you, in one blog post, you talked about like football momentum.
Yes.
And it's anybody who's ever been at a big football game, sometimes you can feel it through the TV, but if you're in the stadium and you feel a swing, the same thing happens in basketball. And when they try to analytically pin it down in basketball, it just run. They call it a run. Like when different teams go on a run, it just starts to flow, and everything's working, and you're trying to break their run, you're trying to stop their run, and then get a run of your own. And so it's much faster with basketball. But in football, when one team's getting just thumped or barely losing, but nothing goes their way, and then something tips, and you can feel this momentum change, and it's palpable. It's a physical change, and tens of thousands of people in the stadium can all feel it. And it's as if them feeling it too amplifies it somehow, like this collective belief and this collective confidence that everything just turned is actually something that influences reality. Like reality itself like goes with it. And we're in that kind of a moment.
Yes, we are.
There's this inflection. There was all the 2020 tyranny and the COVID nonsense and the reaction to that. And then there's something like Charlie Kirk pursuing off of that and growing and building and pushing. Trump winning, Trump surviving the assassination attempt, and just out of that, not being embarrassed, not being cautious. No one's easy to shame right now. They're just pushing hard, immune to the normal weapons of the left. And then Charlie's assassination, his martyrdom happens, and the momentum just goes even more intensely. And so the principle of pursuit for everybody, from publishing houses like Canon to individual Christians,
So
is a
your
real
key
one.
your key element in pursuit is buy stuff,
Yeah. Take ground.
take ground.
Take ground. If you're just a regular person at school, wear a T-shirt, say things out loud, like be more courageous, push. Like just go push the line a little bit. If you're an institution and you can buy stuff, do so. What do you think it looks like for a family right now to pursue?
Go ahead, have another kid.
Do it. Okay.
I would say pursuit looks like probably the central thing on the vibe shift at the family level is going to be a true sea change when every Christian gets their kids out of the government schools. That's going to be that's going to be it. When we say the thing that's unique about the last 5 years is that virtually every public institution has disgraced itself, and the medical establishment, the military, all of them, and then some of them, for example, under Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of the Department of War, is recovering its credibility, but it's recovering its credibility by straight up the middle acknowledging that was what we were just doing was bad. Mm-hmm. And the health establishment hasn't done that yet. Congress hasn't done that yet. So with the
RFK has, but he's he like Hegseth has rebels down below him,
right,
who aren't happy. RFK's got the same situation.
So with families, there's a lot of disillusionment and disappointment about government schools, but it's nowhere near the level that it needs to be. Mm-hmm. So it's got to be, I've had it, I'm out of here.
It's not, hey, let's push to pray, or let's push to be able to wear American flag T-shirts without being suspended.
Right.
It's
much
more intense than that.
The thing that boggles my mind is, as much as I admire and respect and applaud the parents who showed up at all those school board meetings a couple of years ago, to confront the school boards about the dirty deeds they were doing, well done. But one of the complaints was, you people are teaching socialism to our kids in these schools. And I would think, what are you talking about? The schools are socialism.
Yep.
It's educational socialism. So you can't expect the schools to be socialist and not teach it, right?
You can't complain when Netflix is streaming content. You can't complain when the public schools are socialist.
Right. That's just the nature of the beast. So I think that there needs to be a pursuit, reformation at the family level, I think needs to be in the world of education. Where is your kid going to go to college? Where is your kid going to go to kindergarten? And that should be a central burning question.
And it's great too that, it's something that's been, part of the institutional, wisdom and stuff and books that you've written, for a long time. And it's also great that that was a huge emphasis of Charlie's, going and speaking to the youth and people asking him questions about, what should I do? How do I start a family? And one of his drum beats was exactly the same thing. Get your kids out of the public school. Don't put them in public school. Get a Christian school, give them a Christian education, and
find a wife, start having kids.
Yep.
And one of the things that Charlie did that was so good was that he identified the winnability of nihilistic young people.
Yeah.
It's not that these kids were nihilistic because they were Russian philosophers who had
they'd read too many of the French,
who had drunk the bitter dregs of life down to the bottom of the cup. They were nihilistic because of what they've been served, what they've been fed their entire lives, and so that means that their worldview was nihilistic and black, at war with their youth and energy and desire to mean something. And Charlie identified that was a huge vulnerability on the part of the left, and so he directly targeted young people, particularly young men. And I would say that we need to keep that up, keep pitching to that cohort.
Yeah, very, very much. I think that one of the things that's been so fruitful from an individual level to an institutional level, and what I see a lot of individuals doing this more than I see institutions doing this. But I would encourage everybody anywhere involved in any infrastructure to go through the process of having a really kind of honest reckoning with how they're doing, like where are we, what have we done, and the opportunities that are now presented in this Trump's first term, the remainder of his first term, but this post-Charlie martyrdom moment. Like you should really be looking around at wow, what could one guy with a card table do when he applied himself? Versus right now, what do you have? What do you have that you're using how? Like, in what ways are your is your imagination too small? In what ways are you actually relaxing and just kind of coasting and not really pursuing excellence? Not tactical excellence, strategic excellence, or just righteousness. So there's been plenty of people who've said, I need to get real about my faith again. I bought a Bible. I need to start reading the Bible. I need to go back to church. Fantastic. Now do it with the churches. So there's the individuals doing that. What do the church leaders need to do?
Yeah.
What kind of reckoning and accounting do they need to do about how they need to become more aggressive? They need to be more out there with ministry and evangelism and putting on events and getting ministers onto campuses and like going in their own turf. And I think that's true for schools. I think it's true for churches, businesses. How can you now push? So what we see individuals doing, having personal revivals, like personal things, we have to do at Canon. We need everybody to do that. We need every infrastructure and institution to do that and be thinking about how do we get more excellent, more aggressive, and how can we be perfected in this moment and then pursue aggressively, take more ground.
Ben, what do colleges need to do?
Well, I mean, there's a great opportunity to get a lot more bold and a lot more explicit about, some of the important things. One of the things that was really fun about like the last NatCon was getting to have having NSA involved in the panel on why Obergefell must go down.
Yeah.
I think schools need to get a lot bolder on those sorts of questions. But there's also like,
Do they need to detach from money?
Some funds.
yeah. I mean,
Is that like a do they have to get off the federal teat first?
There's a piece of that, but I think that all right. Well, I think that one of the problems we have, and this is schools, but it's honestly just ministry in general, is that we are too. I don't think we see how much we are structured by the fact that we think of ourselves as nonprofits. Because there's
Built for failure.
yeah, it really is, because I mean, and I get the tax status. That's one thing, but I don't think we see how much that sort of like, I don't know, it puts people to sleep in terms of ambition and a sense of what we're here for. So if you're a for-profit business, you have this really hard, cruel, objective scoreboard that you must score on, or you must close down and go away. And I think that nonprofits, because you've removed that scoreboard, what is the mission? Well, it becomes more and more about just like the replication of yourself, like existence is what I'm
The
here for.
replication of yesterday.
Yeah. And we just try to stay alive, and then that's why instead of like when you're tuned to compete, then you're tuned to take risk. Like risk taking becomes really important because that's the only way you get ahead. But if you're simply tuned to survive, then you become super risk averse, and that's why you won't get these places saying something bold, because that's risk.
Is this the same thing as anti-fragile, or simply?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a piece of anti-fragility to it, but I think that I think there's just a risk averseness across all of our institutions in this, and I think it's a moment of reckoning to figure out what is it that we're here for, what would it mean for us to win, and what does it look like for us to put points on the scoreboard, and then to get really ambitious about that.
Speaking of risk averseness, I was at a Friday morning prayer meeting, prayer breakfast, and we were talking about how long it took to build the Empire State Building, which was just over a year.
Good grief.
Just over a year. And the Brooklyn Bridge, like how many people died building the Brooklyn Bridge? Well, quite a few. But they were just, we're going to do this,
right?
And we're going to do it. But now we landed on the moon in the 60s, but now we haven't gone back in decades.
Because we're just trying to stay
because
alive.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's dangerous. I do think the kind of piggybacking on what you're saying, Bennett, the moment this applies to everything, like different levels, but think about schools especially. When you think about where we are, it's like we're trying to climb back up a slide. Like we're on this playground slide, and I'm talking old sheet metal, like shiny and slick, and we're trying to go back up it. We don't like what happened at the bottom of the slide. with all this tranny stuff and all this nonsense. And we're all pushing to climb back up the slide. The thing that rot and decay and entropy have going for them is the momentum of the fallen world.
Yeah.
And if you just stop, if you try to stand still, if you try to pause and just coast, you're going down the slide. You're going to start going back down. And we're trying to get back up the top, and we're ultimately trying to get all the way to the top and off this slide. And really the slide is like this secularism, this whole secular experiment and everything that happened to the church in America and so on. The thing that's interesting is to see which people want to go and settle at different points. And so we're all in this moment where everybody's pushing against the trans progressive madness, but some people want to get back to like the Playboy sexual ethos of 1980.
Yeah.
They like that's they want to get back to the Reagan years. That's all they can see. They don't understand the slide goes much farther than that. And then you have schools like Hillsdale that have raised a ton of money and been successful, and I'm very grateful to them. And I really like Larry Arnn. However, they're still teaching evolutionary biology, and like they're not off the slide. And ultimately, how we got onto the slide is there, right there. Like we got to get all the way back to this like the god of chaos at the top got embraced in the academy. The god of chaos and mutation and random chance and matter.
The god of chaos is the bully who pushed us.
Yeah, and that's how we got here. We got to get all the way back out. And so I'm actually curious. You might even know how many colleges there are that are not doing that. Like they're openly creationist universities and colleges. There can't be very many.
Gosh, I have no clue.
I know Liberty does.
Okay, that have
They're
We like I'm like I don't know about Grove City. I don't know about some of them. I know Hillsdale. My daughter was in one of the classes, and this professor was just ramrodding evolutionary biology and just forcing it on the kids exactly like it would have been in the old days. You know, this is Hillsdale, and just really berating them and pushing, and all the kids are looking at each other being like, do you believe this crap? And all of them like, no. But a bunch of them keep their heads down and fill out the test and answer all the questions. And that's like getting back to the way it was
1980s public school.
Yeah, 1980s, where people are like, this is dumb, but I'm still going to kiss the ring. I'm still going to write down the Darwinian answer because the teacher's insisting on it.
Right.
And this is a required course or whatever. And that's the kind of thing where Hillsdale is pushed further up the slide than a lot of institutions, but then is still like actively shoving kids, trying to shove kids back down with stuff like that. And all these institutions have to get bold about everything, bold about every compromise, and just be done with it. Just be completely done.
A return to blammo creation.
Yeah,
God
but
spoke
the
and
same things
blammo.
happen. Same thing's the
Blam
case with
creation.
feminism. The same thing's the case with how do we get on this gender slide? How do we get on this cultural chaos slide?
Well, how many conservative Christian girls are 1/3 feminist and don't know?
without knowing.
Right.
I will say my sister said this first. My daughters have said it too. There are plenty of really like moronic dudes who can make a woman want to be a feminist and just a heartbeat. Where the fastest way to convert a girl to feminism is to be a
Total.
Be a moron.
to just be retarded about masculinity. And I mean that in a literal sense, like to actually take like a retarded version to retard masculinity, abuse masculinity, and have some girl sitting there looking at you being like, the thing I hate about you most
Is you're
is that you're making me a feminist. Like, it's that kind of a thing. So, I mean, honestly, yes, there's a lot of conservative girls who are 1/3 feminist and that 1/3 could go away if the guys also were taking care of their business.
Yeah.
Anyway, we got to get off all the slides.
Yes.
Is there anything else we need to cover? Aaron?
I would kind of a question or something to have you sound off on. Thinking about the Charlie Kirk Memorial, and what everyone saw there, and people were not used to seeing and hearing saying these things. Our rulers, a lot of people talking about Jesus, preaching the gospel,
Kneeling before the throne.
before the throne in ways that, my mom texted me, it was like, I've never seen this before. And I think a lot of people had that reaction.
I've never seen it before. I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
And evangelicals have filled up stadiums before.
Yes.
Right.
Promise Keepers.
Promise Keepers did that in the 90s. So it's not that the stadium event.
Yes.
There's something about it where it's that vibe shift in the game where this is different somehow, and it was kind of odd. It wasn't a church service because not everybody up there on the stage would be someone you would ask to speak in a church service. But the people who didn't have any business speaking in a church service were still up there honoring Christ. That was really striking. They didn't really have a full grasp of what they were talking about, but they felt the pressure, the ethos shift.
Christ is king. They felt that.
Christ is king, and they went with it.
Doug, if we say, okay, we've got this moment, and who knows how long this moment lasts for us, so we need to get as much done during this time as we possibly can. Are there some clear objectives where you'd say these are the things that must happen? Like I feel like the CT move is one of the things I've felt is retake the institutions. We ought to retake the institutions, at the very least, learn how to actually thrive in our own. We need to learn how to lead our own institutions, but we ought to be retaking institutions. Are there other things that you'd put on the table like that?
The big institution, and this is not a defined institution, but the big one that needs to be tackled, I think, would be the arts. So we've been fond of saying, Andrew Breitbart used to say, culture is upstream from politics, which is true, and we've maintained that worship is upstream from culture, which is true. But in between culture, culture generally, and worship would be the refined culture. Movie making, novel writing, poetry, painting, sculpture.
The culture that molds and catechizes the next generation.
Yeah, Churchill said, first we shape our buildings and then our buildings shape us. And that, and evangelical conservative Christians do have the resources that are currently disorganized.
We could be doing it.
This is something that could be done either by buying languishing studios or art schools, or there's a art program, worldview centric, Christian worldview centric art program that's started up, I think, in Maryland, in the DC area. We need 100x of that, where it's not where you don't think that evangelicals did this, therefore it's lame. Right?
There's something here that I've talked about before. I don't remember where, but I know the conversation has happened. We are weird. Conservative Christians, conservative evangelical Christians are very strange about the arts, because there's an old pressure to try to make everything that is artistic, to make it a vitamin. Instead of having it be protein and a well-balanced meal and something that edifies, that just feeds people and pushes them onto to go live, gives them the energy to live, and then they have the next meal. It has to be some kind of GNC supplement, a vitamin. That's what it has to be. And we've moved on from that. But one of the things that Aaron and I have discovered as we are in conversations, raising money for film funds and so on, and for various projects, is you have some believers who it must be ideological, and almost to a propagandistic level. And it also needs to be kind of nonprofit. It's got to be, we're not doing this to make money. We're in this for the spiritual bottom line. So how do you structure a business like that? You really can't structure a business like that. But then there's also people who don't understand the power of patronage, and how most of the great art through the history of Christendom was executed by means of people becoming wealthy and being believers, and then bankrolling things as patrons, whether it's cathedrals, symphonies, like there was a patron that was actually behind that. So did Handel's Messiah need to pencil? Did it need an ROI? Did it need a P&L? And what we have now, weirdly, and of course the ROI was incredible and how long it's gone, but would it have come into existence if Handel was just trying to write and perform something that would sustain itself via ticket sales? So just via ticket sales, would that have been what was produced? Or would you find people who are real artists, want to really honor God with beauty, and they want to push it hard? They need a patron, because if you just say, hey, what we need you to do is go out to the common consumer, find the thing that will resonate with most of them and won't challenge them or push them or whatever, but will get them to come buy a ticket, then the arts end up where they are now.
Not only that, but I would say, especially for evangelical patrons, and there are not a few of them, there are many of them.
There's a lot of people with the checkbooks.
A lot of people with money. One of the besetting sins of our patron class is that they don't check, right?
Yeah.
And I think this has to do with our tax structure. And patrons want to be philanthropic. They want to find an organization that looks good, and they write it into the budget or the annual grant schedule, and the money goes out, and they don't check on whether they're doing what they said they would do.
They set up a family office. The money goes into it. People are presenting and writing grants, and they are. It's the whole thing is set up for tax reasons.
Right.
And
so artists, the artistic temperament needs to be funded, and it needs to have a donor who's a pain in the neck.
a donor who's well educated, trained, and they might not be able to hold the brush or focus the camera, but they do understand what it's saying and is it true, good, and beautiful.
See, that's the trick, the donor who is well educated, because that's the problem, is that we don't, particularly in American culture, we don't actually have a very tough scale of what is like objectively, what does objective beauty look like? And so it really is it's not in the painting. It tends to be in the little postcard on the side that ticks certain boxes, mentions certain things. And that's what gets the funding now, is whether you say the right things, but the art itself is like kind of irrelevant. But developing a culture that actually has a real true objective sense of beauty, and then money that is oriented towards that. Right. But right now the money is not oriented towards objective.
I really do think a pure free market capitalism does not produce great art. It just won't. What you have potentially is you have people who can be educated and trained, who can make their money in the free market capitalism, and then understand.
Well, it's money without aristocracy. It produces, I think, what you're describing.
And I think I'm stealing this from somebody, so attributing the quote, Google it. So Siri could tell you, I want to say it's Chesterton, but it might have been somebody else, that art has no survival value, but gives survival value.
Yeah.
And it's just that simple thing of like a really beautiful thing, a really gorgeously shot film, a wonderfully written novel. Like, how does that have survival value? And also, when an artist is pushing their art to be better and to be more excellent, they are ultimately applying pressure to the consumer, and it's a little bit of friction. And so there's artists who mistake this, and they think I'm some super special elite person, and they don't understand me because I'm an artist and you're just plebes. That's a bad mentality. But great art will drag people behind it. Mm-hmm. And so what Shakespeare did was not reach down to the lowest common denominator. He dragged a population and the English language itself to a higher place.
Down the road behind him.
Yeah, I mean, he pushed it and dragged it to a better, stronger place and created an art form, really, like forever, that, continues to this day. And so how does that happen when you are actually just trying to sell tickets? Mm-hmm. If you're just trying to sell tickets, then it's a culture of celebrity, and it's a culture of coolness and peer pressure and really, really refined marketing, but you're not actually pushing the artistic line. So architecturally, really, really gorgeous buildings cost more per square foot. And how do you get people to a place where they're okay if they're just free market capitalists looking at the P&L and looking at the cost per square foot? Mm-hmm. well, how do we build beautiful things? Why do you think all evangelical architecture looks like it does? It just looks like it belongs in a mall.
Yeah.
And it's pretty terrible because it's efficient. It's a box, steel trusses, and it's tragic. So I think we've seen guys who it has to be super ideological. So this is not for profit. Okay, I think they're pretty close. I think it's kind of like a close place to be. And we've seen guys who say, I don't give a rip if it's Christian. It better pencil out.
Business.
It better compete on the business side. It needs to ROI, ROI, ROI. And I understand that too. But on the left, we've seen a ton of people who will throw huge piles of money behind things for cultural change. Mm-hmm. And the right makes fun of them. Don't you understand you're losing money, Disney?
Go woke, go broke.
Yeah, it's like they don't care. You don't understand that, what's their market cap? It's over 200 billion. Disney's over 200 billion. And you're going to lose all your money, Disney. It's like, it's going to take a minute. They're working to change the culture. Mm-hmm. They're spending money to change the culture. And then you look at the number of billions of dollars that are being spent on the left to rot the culture, cutting with the grain of entropy and decay and temptation and vice. And then over on the right, the conservatives and the Christians and the evangelicals with the deep, deep checkbooks, how much are they spending to shape the culture? And the answer is an absolute fraction. I mean, it's a tiny, tiny number.
Well, I mean, you look at Disney and really those institutions are kind of hybrid. They look like a business, but they're ultimately very much patronage.
Yep.
The things that get funded that don't make any money.
Exactly.
The things that get produced that don't make any money.
Because they want it to exist in the world, because they want it to affect the people in the world.
And then the picture is all agreeing with everything that's just been said. The picture is complicated when artists, including evangelical artists, who have been suckled by the tenets of Rousseau and down, have, I deserve patronage. Well, because I have refined
nerve
endings.
Because I have a feeling. I have a strong feeling.
And so we can acknowledge and urge and push the need for patrons, but I would say educated and shrewd patrons who would seek out the genuinely humble artist as opposed to the conceited one. The one who is grateful for the patronage as opposed to the one who feels entitled, because he's going to be exhibiting what I call the cape and beret problem.
Yep. He can get very mustache twirly.
Mustache twirly, yes.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And I do think there's plenty of evangelicals spending money. But it is a very interesting thing that the left understands that they can't take it with them. And they're trying to change this world here and now. And then Christians who know they can't take it with them can be very conservative. They're very risk averse. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand that they're hoarding bullets behind the battlefield. Instead of sending this ammunition out to do its work, they're hoarding it and then setting up their trusts and taking care of their kids. All fine. Nothing wrong with any of that. But focusing on trying to achieve immortality, this transgenerational immortality with their super conservative financial approaches.
Yep.
Where on the left side, they're just full send. Like, what's Bill Gates doing?
Full send.
Full send. Mm-hmm. And even Elon Musk, who's not a believer, is very much that way. His net worth is really high right now, but it could go all the way to the basement and he would still be full send on what he's currently trying to accomplish. Yeah. And I think that's something the evangelicals really, really need to figure out and shift.
Yep.
Spend that money.
One last thing to just throw onto that too is also watching the artists, or it could be artists or whatever, but the people going to the conservative patrons that know how to dog whistle certain things, and watching conservative patrons, high net worth individuals,
investors,
go for it,
family offices,
go for it,
just bite the lure.
Yeah.
Yep. And you're talking about dog whistling vitamins,
or I'll just use an example, but Scorsese wants to make a movie. It's going to be his faith, his big faith movie, and everyone's like, okay,
I get to be hip and cool. Yes. I'm in with Scorsese, and also I can justify it. There's plenty of ways to play fiddle to the ego.
Yep.
None of which we should do. We'll just end there.
Don't do that.
That would be bad.
No fiddling
That
to
would
the
be
ego.
bad.
Yeah. Okay. This has been Doug Wilson and friends, meaning the three of us. Doug Wilson over there, and hopefully we buy more institutions successfully.
Let's do it.
And then wear them as skins, I think was
Yes, good suits.
perfect. Cheers.
Thanks.